Hello, this is Nicole Campuzano, and today I'm gonna be talking a little bit about the English history. As we know, everything has its origin, its beginning, and today I'm gonna try to break down, the English history. I'm gonna try to bring you guys over to the development of the language, over the influences, and much more. Um, as English students, we are supposed to know the origin of the language that we are trying to target, and that is pretty much what I'm gonna be doing today. The English language has a very long and fascinating history, which started many centuries ago. Um, Pretty much in its beginning, it was known as Old English, and it was brought to England by Germanic tribes such as the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes. And pretty much the English that we know today is very different, you know, very different to the English that was back then, the Old English. That Old English had complex grammar, complex vocabulary, and it has, endings in its words. One of the most important piece of literature from that period is the View, which is a poem that talks about monsters and heroes. When something is new, you know it tends to be influenced, and it tends to get changes, especially as English was a language that was brought to the land by other people. So English was over time influenced by another languages, such as the Celts, the Romans, and the Vikings. Uh, all of them left their marks on it, and for example, the Celts provided some words that were used to name some places, such as York or London. In the case of the Romans, they provided some words that were pretty much from the Latin, and they were related to religion or traits, especially after England adopted Christianity. Uh, when it comes to the Vikings, they provided, simpler words to say like that, such as sky or X. I have other examples of other words that were provided to the English language by these people. For example, in the case of the Celts, I have other words as Thames, as Avon, and Dovers, which again, those are names of places. In the case of the Romans, I have words such as wine, cheese, butter, street, library, history, science, and much more. In the case of the Vikings, they also provided other words, for example, window, knife, also verbs, which is very interesting. They also provided some verbs, for example, the verb take, the verb call, and the verb give were also some of the words that were given to the English by the Vikings. And they also provided some nouns such as freckle, law, and sheep. Uh, So it was very influenced by other languages. In 1066, when the Norman conquered England, they brought to the land, or to the English, they brought the French language. And it usually happens what it tends to happen when somebody just go to a different territory. Pretty much they obligate the people from that territory to accustom and to follow their culture or their language. And this case was not the exception. The French eventually became the main language, and it was spoken by, rich people, mostly the government, and in public events such as the court. um, while the common people still spoke English. um, Eventually some French words were added to the language, and that just made the English become more, just let it become richer and more diverse. But slowly English regained importance, and it was about the 14th century when it began to be used again, at schools, at court, public events, and in literature. Um, that's, yeah, in literature. And during this time, which is called the Middle English, the language became just a little bit simpler. It lost all the complex endings and the complex grammar, and it just blended up with it just blend up the French and the Old English. Pretty much it combined the elements from each one, and then it just developed a new stage of the English language. um, you know um, During the um, um, what's it called, the Middle English, there were pretty much many changes. The English just became um, the language that it's today. uh, Back then it wasn't used like that because it was replaced by the French, but eventually it just became or regained its importance. Finally it became the modern language or the modern English that we know today. uh, it still makes or it still has a lot of changes. It changes a lot. That's, I believe, all the languages do, because they are in contents development, people coming from other places adding new words to the language, uh, young people creating new words, and that just encouraged me to study and to be in contact to the language, because it just help you to not to lose it, right? I was reading also that many people consider that modern students were not able to understand the Old English because of its complexity. But I understand that, the fact that we were not in contact to that Old English is what make it a little bit more complex. But I consider that the English that we have today is just an amazing result of many years or many centuries of changes. And today the language that was not spoken in public places, or the language that was replaced by another language, is the second language more spoken in the whole world. So that just, teach a lesson. Well, thank you very much for listening, and you have an amazing day.